Yeah, you wanna put that dish in your mouth.
Wish you could slide into my mind and make me mine. Push play rewind. Let's whip outside, and so am I.
Hey everybody, I'm Dylan B. Dickerson White, Mr. Trans USA 2022. I'm actually here with our Mr. Trans Puerto Rico 2023, Ricky Rosé. So here's the thing: is like he probably doesn't need as much of an introduction from me right now, and you may know internationally known performer and everything. But Ricky, can you tell us a little bit about maybe some things they haven't seen from you online about yourself, personally?
Howdy. Wow. I mean, people have seen a lot of me online if you follow my
Peach emoji.
but yes, hello all. I am a DC based drag king, cabaret artist, go-go dancer, spoken word poet, whatever gets me on a stage, you name it. I'm based in DC by way of Puerto Rico. And off the stage, I am a community organizer and just advocate, harm reductionist, and I don't know. I do a lot. There's a lot of work to do in the community and a lot of things I enjoy doing on and off stage. So that's me. Hello.
No, that's you kind of hit the point. You are like a jack of all trades. You've done like every type of performance, every type of organizing, taken pretty much every role in a show that can possibly be taken.
That's you. I can host.
Yeah, like that's the thing is I can yeah. We kind of bonded over some of those like having to do all of those things. And just sometimes out of necessity, and it's a good way to lead into, being an organizer. I think those things really match up. Like, hey, I'm taking all these roles and producing a show, but I can do that, or even being in a show and do it outside of that. And you mentioned a lot of the stuff that you've sort of worked on community organizing off the stage. And I know you actually did a lot of those things a few years ago with some of the disasters, obviously, that happened going on. So did you want to kind of tell people some of those projects you've worked on over the last few years, like off stage?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been performing or in the nightlife community for the last 6 years, and essentially from the jump, yeah, I've done a lot of community organizing, pretty much since I was a teenager. I've always been like super passionate about helping out the community and giving back. And so yeah, when I became a performer, I always talked about how, I respect those who their dream is to like get on TV and everything like that. That is not in my fantasy for my career. But I have always said that I want to be known and I want to like travel the world and see the world. But in that, I always told myself that I will only be as big as those I bring with me. And I will always use my platform to speak on things that are going on in the world and use my platform to continue to give back and help out the community. So pretty much as soon as I started performing, I also started producing. And my first ever production was a benefit show for Puerto Rico. It was about it was almost a year after Hurricane Maria and Irma all but destroyed Puerto Rico, which is where 99% of my family still live on the island today. And they went through a lot. They're still dealing with a lot. And so when it first hit, I linked up with my family and local restaurants to send a lot of send funds and send a lot of like goods. And so again, when I started performing, then I was like, well, guess what? We can do these benefit shows. And so I've done, I've done 3 or 4 benefit shows for Puerto Rico at this point. We've raised, our last benefit show for Puerto Rico when the earthquakes hit last, gosh, was it this year? What is time? I think it was earlier this year.
I don't understand time anymore. Ever since COVID, it's been like it doesn't exist.
Yeah, the last show we did, I co-produced and co-hosted with Every Pleasure, who is a DC-based drag queen from Puerto Rico. Um, we raised over $4,000 that we split among four different grassroots organizations that were doing a lot of good work down on the island. And yeah, and now with We the Kings, I've always been a huge fan of Hips in DC. If you don't know who Hips is, please, please, please go look them up. That is hipsdc.org, I believe. They do a lot of great work for decriminalizing sex work, harm reduction, lots of free resources for the community, including naloxone, or AKA Narcan. If you don't know what that is, you should Google it as well. I could talk about this all day, but
Yeah, that's the thing, is like that's you have so much experience with it, so much to say, and like all of the things you've been involved in. Like I said, there's just so much, and we have luckily a bit of time because I'm working from home today.
sweet. Yeah. I mean, there's so much to do. So I've been a huge fan of Hips and following them and have received a lot of resources and support from them myself. And so I've been wanting to connect with them for a very, very long time on how we can bring them into more nightlife spaces. And so finally this year, I kind of got my stuff together and reached out. And so now every We the Kings, which is every third Friday at JR's Bar in DC, we also have Hips there with us. They have a table where they hand out like fun candy, condoms, naloxone, and now this latest show, I like almost teared up. We even have fentanyl test strips, and the people are just really cool people. They're really easy to talk to, and they can answer any questions you have about the work that they do, or harm reduction, or just support. So I really, really enjoy having them in the building with us every third
That's
Friday as
actually
well.
really huge, I think, especially now. We've looked at even just the onslaught of like medical anti-trans healthcare bills too, and that's even our community, especially like getting pushed further away from those kind of resources, and bringing
Absolutely.
them into our nightlife spaces. Like you said, it's just so huge right now, especially in the DC area.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been really wild. They have a really great needle exchange program that I have taken advantage of several times, just so I can do my shot. Like, because it's
I was
hard to come
actually
by those resources.
it's you wouldn't be I've had the same kind of issue lately too, trying to even get that needle prescription. Sometimes they'll write the prescription for the testosterone, but the needle thing gets mixed up, and then even just
Yeah,
being able to like and that didn't happen as much before, so this whole thing has thrown us into like chaos. But like
completely. Completely.
I I kind of you touched on a few things like that is my ADHD brain kind of works this way too.
Same.
So it's like a tangent that makes sense to me. Just because we're talking about sort of this intersection between being a nightlife performer and advocacy work, and it gave me the idea of talking about intersectionality, and like a lot of people don't really know what that means, especially within the trans community. So I'm just going to leave that as like an open question for you to talk about what intersectionality sort of means as a trans person.
Ooh, totally. Yeah, it's always interesting to navigate, especially the nightlife community as queer people, because yes, as a queer community overall, we are all marginalized to an extent. Especially right now, there's a lot of people out there who want to do harm and do not want to see us shine, putting it lightly. um, and so, of course, we're all dealing with, some kind of danger. That's the fact of the matter, here in 2023, unfortunately. But even as queer people, then you dive deeper, and like there's so many different layers to how people are marginalized even within our queer community. And so it's sometimes it can be really tough to navigate the community as a Black or brown trans person, because especially in a city like DC that is so transient and so gentrified. um,
It's weirdest parts walking through certain parts of Northeast and being very confused, yeah,
Oh,
about what's
absolutely.
going
And it's
on.
ever changing. It's ever
Yeah.
changing. Or even in Puerto Rico, I have not visited home in a little over 2 years now, because it's unfortunately just not safe for me to do so right now, at least to go alone. and I usually travel alone. So,
Yeah.
um,
Is that a time for me? Like I actually wanted to bring this up at some point, but I think that I will probably forget, and this is really important. I think what are some of the issues facing trans folks in Puerto Rico right now? Because I don't think a lot of people they know what's going on, like, mainland 48 states, I think, but not like in Puerto Rico and other territories. Like,
yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, it's why violence has always been a thing down there. When I did go with family, I couldn't just walk down to the local bodega, or at least my mom wouldn't let me go alone. Violence, particularly toward women, is ever skyrocketing and constantly a problem. But especially with queer and trans folks, there's just with Latinx culture, there's this huge like level of machismo and just misunderstanding toward queer folks, where a lot of the men and people feel bestowed upon them the power to just end your life because they don't understand you living in your truth. So, for example, there was this huge rapper, Kevin Fret, back in 2018, 2019. I can't remember how long ago. He was the first ever out gay Latin trap artist, and he was killing it. The music was just bops on bops. Unfortunately, he was murdered in the middle of the night while he was riding his motorcycle on the island, just for being queer and out. There's a lot of backstory to that and a lot of speculation on what happened. But unfortunately, yeah, that's just the fact of the matter. And so, especially toward trans women, just because, again, overall violence toward women on the island is just ever skyrocketing. So there's constantly community organizing around that, marches, really fighting legislation down there to protect women and protect queer and trans folks. So, I mean, the community is very strong and growing stronger by the day. I have a lot of queer community down there that I follow a lot and try to check in with every now and then. See, like, hey, how y'all doing? Or like, what y'all up to down there lately? So, they are reclaiming their power and making a lot of positive changes, but that is just the truth of the matter. That unfortunately, I haven't felt comfortable to go back within these last 2 years. I hope to soon. I miss home. I miss my island. But unfortunately, I haven't been able to go back personally.
And I think it's just like a hard thing because that's where your family is, and like
Exactly.
I
would
want
love
to
to see
feel
my
like
family.
and it's like it's home, but you can't even that whole like when you can't go home thing.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
It's I don't think a lot of people people here, they may have it's a few hours away and they still feel, but when you can't go home to a place where you're like you had said, you're already like it's a different culture and it's a different place that I came from and I want to have to be able to experience that. But I think it's a little more compounded. And I think that's just a sort of, again, brain jumping off point. I mean, I am very obviously white in more ways than one. So I think that one of the things I wanted to ask is like, what can people like me do, or what do we need to know to make things better? I think
There's
that's
so much. There's so much you can do. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be done, and there's a lot that one can do, even with the lack of resources. The most important one to start with is, yeah, educating yourselves. Um, Google is free. There are so many workshops and panels and courses, books. There's so many different ways to educate yourself on these matters. One of my favorite platforms is Twitter. I guess now it's X.
I don't understand, but I mean,
Yeah. But even though the internet can be a wild place, even I have learned a lot on that platform from people who use it to educate. TikTok, I guess. I'm not a big TikToker, but there's a lot of
I
people
think I
out there.
passed that age.
Right, yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. There's too much going on. But basically, even though these platforms can be a little wild and kooky, there's also a lot of great resources on those websites for free, to just like educate yourself on what's going on, how to support those more marginalized in the community, and then giving resources. And again, that doesn't necessarily have to just be financial, but it can be time, it can be a meal, it can be a ride, it can be a couch to crash on. Obviously everybody is going through it right now. We were just talking before we really started the interview.
Yeah.
Everyone right now no one is having a great, I mean, I hope if you are out there having a great time, genuinely love that for you.
Like, that's amazing.
But I recognize that everybody is going through something right now. But again, the fact of the matter is, the more marginalized you are, the harder it can be to really like climb out of that, to gain, have access to resources that will help you not just survive but thrive. So really just supporting, and then listening, and then supporting, and not my favorite thing is listening and not being defensive. Because even, I recognize how I present. I am really, really light skinned as well. I am not above racial bias either. I learn so much every day as well. And I never claim, I never want to claim to be perfect. I am also always learning. And when I can educate back, I will also do that.
Yeah, and I think that you kind of hit on that point of like educating yourself too, because I know that it can get really overwhelming when you constantly have to explain the same thing over and over again to feels like everybody you talk to. And I think that, just coming from it helps me, like if I'm educating myself, like ask better questions about what to do, and be able to like even help better just by doing that part of research myself. So I totally agree. Like,
absolutely.
Yeah. You mentioned like everybody kind of struggling right now, especially like, trans folks, all of us, trans non-binary folks really struggling. And I think we were talking too, even just about our group with the Trans USA folks, like we're all kind of going through it because we put ourselves out there. And I guess I wanted to ask, why do you think it's important for something like Trans USA to exist, despite the fact that we're struggling like this?
Oh, yeah. First off, it is very important for something like Trans USA to exist, especially right now. We have to continue to be visible, and continue to fight, but also not just fight, but celebrate and enjoy like each other and have trans joy. Like I know, like I'm quite open and transparent that I am stressed about the preparation for this pageant, and the travel and everything like that. But I am sticking with it because it is important to me, the mission, to again be visible and create positive change. But also I know once I get there, that weekend comes. And I cannot wait I'm literally getting goosebumps talking about it. I cannot wait to be surrounded by just trans joy. I can't wait to meet everybody. I can't wait to just like kiki and chat and shoot the crap and, like,
honestly,
like everyone's creative wear, formal wear, everything. I'm already so excited that I cannot wait to just have a weekend of trans joy and trans power. That stuff that's gonna be so powerful to see everyone.
It's like the entire of my like state costume. Like I made a whole big thing about trans power and like the whole lights and everything.
Yep. Oh, for real. Truly, exactly. So
definitely
just very that. I can't wait.
And it's amazing to see, like, just with the things that have happened and the interest, like it's like it happened not how you'd expect it, where with the more that people fought back against us, the more people got interested and were like, hey, we're going to show you what this trans joy is. And now we have so many different types of people, so many different ages, like just being like, we're all here and we're not going away. And it's just
exactly
like, super cool. So I have to ask, like, related question, a little lighter, like what's the category you're most excited about?
Oh man, it's the one I'm most excited about and also most scared and stressed out or nervous for, and that's absolutely the creative wear. I have such a vision for it, especially representing Puerto Rico for the first time in the pageant. Um, I like, it makes me emotional thinking about it because, yeah, I have such a vision. I just really hope that I can bring it together. But I know if I can, baby, that is
Yeah,
going to look so fierce.
it's just so huge to be like, and I know how personal that is too, plus all the things we talked about, and like everybody's, I know, putting that like personal thing into these costumes this year, and I think that's going to be the most important part, not just when they look cool, but like when there's a story, you know. And
Exactly.
I think
Absolutely.
that's it's like, it was my favorite thing to play around with too, definitely.
Yeah.
Um, all right. See, I have like this crazy like college professor from 1984 notes that I can't even read my own writing because I try.
Next.
But before we get back into like some of the crazy, you know, silly questions or serious ones I have, I kind of wanted to take this moment, like sort of in the halfway through, because you know, we mentioned struggling with certain things and we're all struggling. So how can people specifically support you on your journey to nationals in November?
Oh, hello. Welcome to my TED Talk. No. Funny that you mentioned that. Yeah, I am. Well, so right now I am a full-time performer. I have been since I lost my full-time job, unfortunately, and unexpectedly last March. So I am a full-time performer. So please book me. Support my shows. I don't perform just in DC, but all across the DMV. I have a hybrid, so I can drive. I love traveling. I actually have a lot of travel coming up throughout the rest of this year and trying to just continue to stack shows on shows because yes, this pays my bills, but I also love what I do. So please book me. I would love to connect and make some magic on your stages. But then also, I just created my GoFundMe for my journey. I was trying to push it off, but life be life in. So um, I do have a GoFundMe that you can find in my on all my profiles. I have a link tree. I guess I can just comment on it when this gets posted live or
Yeah,
whatever
you
online.
put that.
But yeah, please book me. Please support my shows. I have a GoFundMe. I'm always also accepting digital tips directly through Venmo or Cash App that I can post in the comments and stuff like that. But yeah, right now I need financial resources. So that's the
Yeah.
biggest way you can support. But also if any of my friends, I'm trying to connect more with people who have uh, competed at past national pageants for any guidance, any wisdom. I'm like seeking that as well because I'm like I know what I'm doing, but I don't know what I'm doing. So
And that is the part of like that first one, you know, you're like, I know I've done this before for like 6 years, right? So like, but then
yeah,
and you've had other titles before, you've competed in different capacities before, but yeah, it's it's one of those things too where I understand completely because I'm a really competitive person, but at the same time, you know, I want to like so I get that whole part, and I know that there's going to be a bunch of people like who are going to comment in everything as well. So it's going to be like, thank you. I just wanted to take a moment to like actually let you share that for people because
thank
super
you.
important right now as we get to crunch time.
Real, yes. We got 3 months and we're doing it. We're doing it well.
We're doing it. No, I'm doing
Yeah, I know. I'm like I was gonna stop it. We're doing it, but I am confident. I'm manifesting. I am putting it
it.
into the ether.
Exactly. So this is kind of like a sort of related question as a performer, because I've been asking people about like pet peeves, but for performers specifically, I'm asking about dressing room pet peeves, and I'm not talking like calling anybody out or like like
Oh yeah, for real.
I
Yeah.
mean, I think we can, but you know, like what are some things like that kind of just irritate you in a dressing room environment?
Oh God. Okay, I could talk about this all day. No.
Right, so you gotta like pick, you know.
Exactly. No. Okay. My biggest gripe, and especially when I produce my own shows, I make it clear to my own cast. Having extra people in the dressing room. It's so unnecessary a lot of the time. I understand that some, you may need help getting dressed. Like, sure, bring your trusted person back there to help you get dressed. But once that is over, once they're done helping you, please remove yourself from the dressing room. And I just particularly, I like really do like that is my biggest gripe because especially as someone who will host and produce. I'm already wearing a lot of hats and it's just stressful. So I'm speaking on my own experience. I use the time backstage to get in my headspace and or finalize any last minute, like put out any last minute fires, make sure
Yeah.
my cast is ready and comfortable. So I'm like I use that space as my piece before I have to be on. And so when it's extra people back there, it's
It's
just
chaotic and you're just like
stressful.
trying to like, yeah.
Yes, it's anxiety inducing, it's stressful. Please do not spend time in the dressing room if you are not part of the show.
Especially since most of these are super small to begin with, the ones we have to work with,
Also that, like, you
like,
know what we're working with. We do not have that much room. Please do not add to that.
yeah, no, I was actually the one I say all the time too. It's just because like I'm one of those people that I can't talk and do certain things at the same time either. So if I'm doing my face, I'm like,
Seriously.
I just can't.
Yeah.
It's not gonna happen. And people are gonna think I'm rude. And I'm just like, no, I'm just bad at
All
stuff.
the time.
Like,
Oh my gosh. There have been so many times where I'm in the dressing room, like sitting in the corner, because like everyone else is talking, cool, kikiing, having a good time. And I'll like listen in and whatever. But I just like, I am that meme from Fantastic Mr. Fox, just like sitting in the corner, just like centering myself, getting ready to be on. And like I've literally had friends come up to be like, Ricky, are you okay? And I'm like, yes, I'm fine, I promise. Like once the show starts, like I'll be on. Just like
yeah,
forgive me.
just give me a second.
I need to dissociate for a while.
The very that like and this is fun when it's like a bunch of us who are like neurospicy in some form, like all in the same dressing room, because then it'll be loud at certain points and then super quiet and no one's bothered like at all.
Seriously, oh my gosh, it was so beautiful. The festival I just did this past weekend called Our Universe down in Roanoke, Virginia. It was the first one. Produced by Bebe Demure and Riot Flair. The theater that we had the shows happening in was huge and beautiful, but it was especially great because we had several different dressing rooms, and so they literally designated like one for like the main cast and whatever, and they had another separate dressing room for that was like the quiet, low sensory
Oh,
like
yeah.
room. It was the most wonderful thing because like we were all having a good time and vibing quietly. We all understood that we just like we are shy, we are tired, we're stressed, we're anxious, like and we were just having a great time quietly.
It was absolutely fantastic. I mean, like this is the quiet dressing room, just oh my god, I wish more places, because there are those people that want to have that kind of interaction back there, and they're like, this is the place where I go to not have that.
Exactly. Yeah. But like I would like kind of jump around between the different ones, but when I needed like a moment, I knew that I had that like that specific designated space where I could just go and like zen.
That is so like we need to like this is why we need to like work with the burlesque community even more, like I said, in drag, because
Oh,
there's
absolutely.
there's a whole other conversation too, like that. But this is kind of, I have to like, again, we could talk about it, this is like every live like could be an hour long, every question, I feel like. But
True.
there's another question that I think this is a huge one right now, because different communities, right? So it's still sort of related, spider webs. Sometimes, with trans folks, we're really broad community, like it's an umbrella term. So there's trans mask folks, trans femme folks, non-binary folks in general, just like everybody. And sometimes there's this disconnect among all these different communities. And I'm just kind of wondering if you could articulate some of the disconnect that might be happening right now, and how we could kind of address that.
Oh, yeah, it can be frustrating at times. Yeah, like I said, I am chronically online. And I would say that Twitter/X is one of my favorite platforms to use, but there's always some kind of discourse going on, particularly from annoying cis gays, cis gay men who really don't understand the trans thing. And yeah, it can be. Oof.
I know you're trying to be
Yeah.
words here, but this is an unofficial. Like we're really just you can kind of get at the point here.
The nitty gritty, yeah. Yeah, so okay, like the fact of the matter is like, and yeah, screw it, we're live on camera.
Sometimes we can't dance
Sure,
around
people
the
can,
issue.
yeah, like I understand people can have their preferences or whatever, but the fact of the matter is when you start to talk about that publicly and when you start to use certain coded language, yeah, at the end of the day it is transphobic. I myself I'm not a woman, I am not a man, I am both a woman, I am both a man. I am fully non-binary, so I really don't I can't speak to like like the full like trans man side of things because it's just not my experience, but I have had experiences where I do present more mask most of the time. I'm still the genderful gender bender of burlesque, but
Bosses.
yeah, it's like your genitals don't define you. That's just that.
And I think
so, don't be weird. Don't be
weird. Like that's really
don't be weird. Don't make it weird. Why does it have to be weird?
That's to be the motto on the back of the tee. Don't be weird.
Don't be weird. For real. I wish that was my tagline or that's my motto. Don't be weird. Don't make it weird.
Mine is just be weird. Like for me personally.
Oh yeah, okay. I mean, absolutely. Be weird, but like don't be weird, but like don't make it weird.
Yeah. And I think I got into the question too because I think it had just been a news story about some of the actually two. There was a pregnant trans man and that had been killed, and there was another issue with a trans person, like, and somebody a trans woman who is a friend of mine mentioned that we don't have as many problems on this side of the spectrum, and that's why I said there's sometimes a disconnect with what people understand about the community, and I think that you kind of hit another one too there, like this disconnect of even people who are sort of identifying with the binary, not really understanding what non-binary really means or how to even advocate for their non-binary friends.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I've had a lot of conversations with some of my own trans friends, just trying, especially like I recognize like some of our older community, like there just weren't as many resources coming up. Some of the language used has been reclaimed but can still be slightly problematic. It was just a different time, and I'm so grateful to have our older trans community here because we've lost so many people during the AIDS crisis that we are lucky to have older folks here today in general. But yeah, unfortunately, some of that language or some of those mindsets can still be problematic just because of the lack of understanding and lack of resources that were available. And so now we have such access at our fingertips and information constantly flowing at us that things are ever evolving. There's so many different more labels now. There's so many different more words we can use to describe ourselves. And yeah, it can be hee hee ha ha complicated sometimes to have all these labels out there. But the way I see it is they exist to give language to how someone feels inside and would like and wants to present on the outside. So if there's a particular label that someone resonates with, like, more power to you. That's the way I see it. It's just we are all trying to live our lives and have more accepting and love for one another and see each other and uplift each other. So that's the way I see it. I know it can be complicated to understand because, again, there's so much information constantly flowing at us. But we're all just here trying to find peace and joy and not just survive but thrive.
No, and there's like two, like I look at somebody, and once you see the way that somebody responds and just starts acting when you start validating and affirming their identity, like how do you not want that for somebody?
Absolutely. such a lighter energy. I've even had people tell me when I finally just like for me starting HRT was such a long process to finally like decide to jump and do it. But I've even had friends tell me that yeah, I am no longer this like old like angry person that I used to be a lot. I used to harbor a lot of anger and really just lash out and just I used to be a not really happy person. And of course I things are still tough now, but even myself finally starting HRT and just coming into my own, like I have so many people tell me like the glow is real. I'm lighter, I'm happier, I navigate this world with more joy. So that's a very real thing, and that can be whether it's HRT for somebody or again using one of those silly hee hee ha ha labels that is a little off the wall or whatever. It's just we're all here trying to live our truth and
Yeah, and my feeling too, like just I personally saw that like in you, just the glow, the difference, because we met. I actually don't even remember the very first day we met because I think it might have been in grad school or even
I'm
when I was in high
forever
school.
ago.
If I was in grad school, I was probably drunk. Let's just put it that way. Like, and it was a hard time, okay, but it was so much fun to see that like transformation, not the fit, but just the way you were like, you know what, this is, and just exploded from there. And like, I think as an older, trans guy, like just for being like on T for so long or having been
Right.
out so long, it's really cool to see that and be reminded of what that felt like personally too. And
True. Yes.
um, but also this was another point about pronouns and different terms and everything. If you could remember like all these 86 different IPAs or whatever and what's in, and like you can fucking remember that, right?
Real.
Or you're like
Very
blue
that.
flags, like um I just love talking with you, because we can be real on things. Because I think that's one of the best parts of that. And I don't even know where because they was just having so much fun. I totally lost my train of thought. But yeah, I think that I've got like basically two more sort of questions. And it's really related because you have a lot of experience. This last one, two connected questions. Internationally and like getting that your name out there and getting your platform out there, you're really kind of good at that. And I wanted to know how you can kind of bring that to Trans USA. Like, nobody knows what's going to happen in November, and that's the most exciting part for me. But even if like you win, you don't like what can you bring using that international experience you have promoting and like just being out there?
Yeah. I mean, it would mean a lot to me to be able to secure the title, of course, but even if I don't, I I make the joke all the time. Everyone makes the joke all the time, like, oh, I hate people. And I make that joke as well. But truly, especially with nightlife and performing and the queer community, it's been such a joy to meet all walks of life. And so yeah, I spend a lot of time online connecting with other people as well because I like I said, I'm constantly learning, so I want to learn everything I can about this community, myself, performing this art form, everything. I want to continue learning, but then I also want to continue spreading that and creating a positive change in the community. I want to be that voice, and I want to be able to utilize my platform on a larger scale and just continue to like doing that work because there's again, like I always say it, there's so much to do, there's so much to be done. And so I want to continue doing that.
No, I think, and it's the thing is like you actually hit on both of the questions I was going to ask, because I was going to ask like, what do you personally want to gain from this? And you already kind of like actually got to that in there, because it's all tied together, what you can do, and what you can gain from it. So I think that this last little question I have is more so something that related to, we talked about trans joy before, and I usually use the phrase trans excellence, but this is kind of more important right now, trans joy, because excellence can be kind of subjective,
Right.
So what does that mean for you, trans joy?
Ooh, that has been the theme of the summer, leaning into joy, particularly leaning into trans joy. Yeah, like we talked about, there's a lot going on. And everyone is going through something right now. And but at the same time, we deserve that joy. We deserve to feel happy. We deserve to live in our truth. And for me personally, being angry all the time is just it's exhausting. I'm already physically exhausted from working in nightlife and everything, chronic pain, all the great things in life.
Yeah.
And
Yay.
so right. And so if I were to give in to the negative thoughts and the negative feelings all the time, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here. Um, I make a joke a lot that at this point I'm living out of spite to everyone who didn't think I would make it. But also there's so much. There's so much to be done. That I have so much left to do. But there's so much in this world. Uh, I get like emotional about it. But there's so much beauty in this world to see, and like I'll be damned if I do not travel the world and see every last bit of this land that I can before I go.
Yeah, you wanna put that dish in your mouth.